This is the podcast about the meaning of concepts in business.
We are recording.
Finally, Brigita, finally, we got together. To catch you and to have a decent conversation about things, which is I think is quite important to discuss right now. Great to have. To be with you and to have this podcast with you.
Yes, I guess that likewise. I guess mutual feelings. It's also great to be here and I'm very happy finally to be here with you. I guess maybe that's something that we should have started with. Our initial discussion, our initial talk, but it's better sooner than never. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that we found the moment. And so how are you doing? All okay?
Summer is coming. Can you feel it?
Yes.
So it's keep getting better and better. But before we go further, I think we maybe need to introduce ourselves. We just started like this, and it's just like who are they? Who are talking here? So. Brigita, well, from my initiative, I think I wanted for listeners to actually know you, to hear your perspective, your opinion, towards the things. So that's why probably I didn't ask any guest to this podcast. Is just to have a conversation with you and me, who's usually hiding behind all of this.
Well, I guess that's quite important for our listeners. First of all, to know the inside kitchen of who's behind everything and who's behind the podcast and all the organization and of course, first of all, at the same time, it's always interesting to know who's that host.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's basically my name is, yes, as everyone now knows, my name is Brigita, and I've been. Kind of it's a new role for me. I've never probably seen myself as a host of a podcast or something, although for a very long time now I've been very much interested in this genre of podcasts and and discussions themselves and in different kinds of topics and different kinds of spheres. So this was something that I always admired and listened, and I thought, wow, that's such a cool way, of you basically can do anything, but at the same time you can listen to some podcasts while walking, driving, traveling, whatever, and you absorb some new information, you learn something new. So it always it was always interesting. And I think that it always comes. I think that maybe Simona, you'll agree with me that sometimes you feel that there's the time like some sort of time comes when you feel the need or this wish to share, and to kind of initiate your own discussion, your own kind of yeah, just and invite people whom you think you would also be interested in the same kind of thing, and it's not always the fact that we all have the same vision, the same perspective, but that's the beauty of it, just sharing, seeing how people see different kind of maybe the same situation, but how they see it from different angles, and just sharing, listening, discussing, and maybe answering some questions that even as a host you think that okay, you just sit there and you listen to the person, but the beauty of all of it is that you also get the answers to the questions that you kind of have. So that's always
like hidden ones, like you have it at the back of your mind, but Strangely, the speaker answered it for you, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I think that
uh,
that's the most interesting thing, is that sometimes you even you don't ask the question, but they kind of get behind they ask, and they answer that. So I think that one of the things that I guess in this period of time, not only now, but I guess especially now when things are very strange for all of us, still kind of strange. I think that we don't have enough time, or we don't have enough of those, pauses, just to sit and talk with each other. First of all, because there's distance now, the social media
yeah.
and everything, so that we kind of feel alienated here. But at the same time, we kind of, now think that why, there's no time, we don't need that, who cares, and then let's just do our work and then concentrate on that. So this need for just human conversation, I think that that's extremely essential at the moment, in any topic, in any, angle, in any, just stopping, pausing for a little while, and just talking. That's, as simple as that, just talking.
Exactly. I mean, all during all these discussions, like, especially when you getting into quite of interesting topics, or touching interesting subjects, as you said, you can not only answer the questions to yourself which you had in mind, but also reveal a particular side of that person which shows a bit different kind of perspective to everything. And you start realizing things completely, like, in a different way, or seeing things in a different way. So you basically, it's not only reflection you're getting through all these discussions, but also you exploring what you have already inside you. And at the same time, as you said, like, it's a kind of a holiday, brain holiday
Yeah.
from all that mechanical, technical work, which we are, feeling sometimes so much pressure of taking the responsibilities, on, and keep going. It's like, sometimes you start feeling like, I'm not a machine. I'm a human being. I also want to laugh. I want to, have a joke, or
Yeah.
have a different kind of thought from a person next. I don't want to think or get ahead of for everything and have everything in the boxes. So yes, that is a vital. But, like, I don't know what's happening, but we, even though sometimes we talking to each other, but it's like people don't understand each other, or like, they're missing the points, or like, it's starting getting some kind of the theater of the, exchanging the opinions, but no kind of, you cannot feel the real people actually talking. It's just more like, discussing the information they have each other. So do you think it's also, I mean, why we sometimes talking but do not understand each other?
I do agree with that, and I think that there are maybe few reasons, but I also look at it. I've noticed that, especially now, I have been kind of noticing it and dealing with that basically on a daily basis. And recently, I had actually this kind of a chat with one of my colleagues about this topic, and we were rather frustrated, I guess,
Mm,
because it feels that you speak to, let's say, colleagues, you speak to maybe your employees or something like that, and but that is speaking, now in quotation marks, you do that typically now by emails, which has become much more now common, because we don't have that human touch anymore. So emailing, and you think that, okay, I write this email, and it's all clear, it's all organized, but you get some, you feel that the person did not get the message, and you kind of,
mm,
okay, so let's Zoom, or let's team, let's go virtually, and then you have this call, And again, you try to convey that, like to pass on that message, and okay, it seems that everyone is nodding, you feel they understood you, you understood them, all good. And then by the end of the conversation, you kind of say that, okay, so all good, we're deal. And then people start asking questions, and the questions kind of, you feel that nobody was actually listening to you, because they're kind of on the same thought, and you think, why? And I was really upset, I guess, and all of it, it's not only my feeling. I believe that, that's very common issue now. And then you understand that we have this is my kind of point of view, that we have this huge barrier now. Technology has always been a huge help, and it has become, a huge help now. It's like it's vital for us now, to use technology in order to communicate. But at the same time, with all, because it helped, this aided help, it became this, tool. At the same time, it has become this huge barrier for us, because it distracts our attention on so many levels. It's one, you read an email, and it's emotionless, and sometimes people, they don't get that, emotion, and they don't read into that message, and maybe they don't get. I also noticed, it with myself. Sometimes I read it, I think, okay, that's fine. But then in some few hours, you get another message, and the person says, so why didn't you react? And I said, well, I thought that it can wait. But no, it's urgent. You have to, like, well, why there's no reaction? So but you don't get that urgency, through that email. At the same time, with Zooms and Teams and Skypes, and Skype, maybe nobody's using that anymore. But at the same time, there's still distance. It's still a barrier, because once a person is talking, what are we doing? Typically, we don't have even our cameras on, because we're extra exhausted, with those cameras. Then what you're doing then behind that screen? Playing, answering another email, reading another text that you have to read, maybe even having a phone call, and there you go. So there's huge distraction. So we have this huge barrier. And people are really kind of, and I notice it on myself, I do lack qualitative concentration. I call it, qualitative concentration, basically on everything, because there are too many things, and the communication that we used to have person to person, but I mean like person to person, eye to eye, in real life, it's now, it has gone very kind of down. The quality is really not as good anymore. So we have to somehow deal with that, and those kinds of qualitative discussions, and then qualitative communication is the key, because everywhere, at work and business and in friendships, anywhere. And yeah, that's what I notice now. And I think that that's a common issue.
It is, I think the focus during the communication is the key, because if you distract your focus into, I don't know, something like, thinking about what you need to do next, instead of actually being here in the room and actually listening to the words of the person. But when it comes to technology, and you mentioned the emails and all this, you cannot actually keep your focus on the person's face, on the mimics, on the smile, on the movements, gestures, and all this extra information which you're getting when you're having a live person. And, but when you're reading the email, it's actually what you can count on is basically the meaning of the word.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like basically where I'm dragging this is why we call this podcast is the meaning of concepts in business, is that we sometimes communicating in the concepts, and especially now during the technology age, we're communicating into the of the words, but we actually, by not having the same meanings inside ourselves, like the same conceptions or the same understanding of what that word is actually mean to us and to the person, we assume that it's like common sense kind of understanding. But as you can see, the miscommunication still appears. You gave me an example. I said it's urgent, and you thought that it's not urgent, So we kind of start ending up into this miscommunication phenomena during the technology age, just due to we assume that everybody understands the words we use.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not only, the focus, it's the focus maybe gives us that direction where we need to communicate, but actually the what kind of meanings we have inside ourselves, or what kind of understanding we have about a particular word or concept, is actually is like a pillar to our communication, pillar to our understanding of another person, or having a mutual communication between, so it's, I think that's why it's vital, especially now, um to raise this question: do we actually understand the same meanings of the concepts?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that it's all about like everywhere, I guess you have to have some certain kind of rules of the particular game. And I think that in this communication, this email communication, or whatever type of communication, you basically have to also somehow set those rules before you begin the game, so that people know that we're on the same page, people know the perspective you're coming from, and their perspective. So it's all about that initial discussion, initial talk, initial setting your own ground rules to another person. And I know that that's lack of time, and it's not always possible, but it is possible. It is possible, to set those, to share those concepts, to share those perspectives at the very beginning. And even that's I think one of the reasons why we began this podcast is because the more the more those different perspectives you hear about, the easier then it becomes. Because I mean, sometimes and even in the podcast that we had, you listen to the person and you think, wow, really, somebody does that, or somebody reacts like that. But that's the point. This is how you learn. This is how you understand that there is a variety of, and you're not only in that your own bubble. What's very famous now, being in that bubble, and then being spending time with yourself or with the people that you share the concepts with, but getting out of that bubble and being at one point understanding where does that other person comes from, first of all, and second of all, also sharing your viewpoint, so that then, okay, I know your rules, my rules, not rules, I just call them rules, but which is knowing that viewpoint. And then it becomes a bit easier, of course. Once you work, let's say in business, when you work with people, you've been working with people for a particular amount of time, you get used to them and they get used to you. So the behavior, their perspective, how they react. But at this very, very beginning, or when you meet new people, this having that explanation or sharing of the game rules, I think that's essential. Because
do you think that it's a game rules? I see more like exchange the values, like the in order to actually have the mutual communication, you first see where the focus actually going of the person, like what kind of language I need to use. If that person is going to be more technical, it's more emotional, it's more like visual, it's like different kind of communication kind of style with that person. And then it goes with the more with the values. So it's, in a sense, it's kind of rules, but I would divide them in separate things, because rules is the word itself is so systematic. I don't know. For me, I don't know. Maybe for you, it's better to have it as a rules, But I see them as a more like where to focus, the values of the person, and then the what kind of I don't know, maybe those social norms as the rules would be implied, like, how we gonna get along, how we gonna play with the ball of the communication, like, when you're gonna throw and when I'm gonna catch, and what's the time period. But I think this is, it's, you have to still feel it. It's not, uh, sometimes you okay, you understand that this is the kind of rules how we need to play, but sometimes you need to feel it as well. And
I guess that, yeah, I understand what you're coming from. It's when I call it rules, maybe because I'm a teacher. And I think that all, kind of teachers, we have this kind of game, at the beginning of the new class, or when you meet the new person, or students, whatever, you kind of, set those classroom rules. And that's the word, it does kind of work with me a lot, and I kind of, I get it. And it because it has a lot, it depends how you like, how you define that word, and what meaning you find in it. So it could be rules, it could be, something else. But what I also see here is that, I guess that there are, certain points in communication, and certain points in let's say, meeting the person, or starting, your work with the person. Um, that initial, acquaintance, where you kind of, get to know a bit each other, and you kind of, are still afraid, and you're not sure, and you kind of, sniffing around, and trying to get to know that person. Then you kind of, once you already go into, more, let's say, deeper communication, or relation with them, this is where I like to exchange my game rules, at least this is how I call that. And then eventually, and you kind of, you share that how to call that meaning, with well, basically, how we're going to play, how we're going to have a relation we're going to have. And then, of course, in this period, you also feel that exchange of, as you said, exchange of those values, and you see whether that fits you and whether that fits that person. And then once, the relationship goes on, then there's that learning process, where you learn more about that person's reactions, and they learn about you. And it's all about then getting to know and seeing, whether those values change or they remain the same. And so it's all, it's such a beautiful and kind of complex, I guess, process. But I guess the key here is that we pay attention to that, we don't take it for granted, so that even, if these are the steps in that communicate or that relationship, you have to pay attention to you cannot just say, okay, I know the person, that's okay, but you still have to get to know them,
and maintain that,
yeah,
those
that's a good
relations.
word. Yeah, maintaining that, because that's the key, I guess. And we take it for granted sometimes, I guess.
Stranger, I'm start feeling that we actually talking in the different kind of concepts about the business culture, about how we actually behave, how we communicate, what kind of rules, as you call it, like, rules of the game are, and all this is actually the because we're forming the culture, and we need to keep it up with that culture, like by maintaining, by, like, putting, by respecting a particular boundaries of another person, or rules which we set,
Yeah.
so and we also have our own rituals, how we like to communicate with the people. Of course, it's different when you're talking about the partners in the business, or the clients, or, like, the people outside of the organization, itself. Um, you maybe more have the boundaries, not boundaries, but more the bond, the kind of belonging sense with the organization, because you establish it, day to day, you keep meeting them, you solving the problems, you tackling, like, issues, and doing all together. So it's like, being in the, as our guest Christina said, like, yeah, like, being in the same ship, basically. And
Yeah.
that's where it starts, the sense, what does it mean to be in the same ship, is basically within the organization, and how we communicate it between us, in that in that organization. So you see, well, it's amazing. Like, we're using different kind of words, but we're talking about the same kind of thing, about the same perspective. So it's like, uh,
I guess that's again, I guess I come in this case a bit of more of of this linguist, because that's one of that's my background basically. And in linguistics, and this is what I notice now, especially, the more I live, the more I notice that. But this is the problem with one of the issues with communication and with sharing those values with each other. Is just we put everything in words, and that's natural. That's natural for us, because this is how we operate, and we have to do that. We have to define our concepts in some words. We have to put them into those words. And sometimes we tend to simply use the words, put them in sentences, and state something. So it means that that's my point of view. That's it. And naturally, another person, like in our discussion here, then might question if they're brave enough, or if they want to get involved in communication. They will question your words. They will question, why do you say the rules if I mean, if that's that's a strict word. And then a natural, nice conversation develops. And then eventually, probably 97% of time, at the end of the day, you will see that you're speaking about the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's all different. I mean, it's just, put into different words. But how often are we brave
doing that?
How often we are really willing to go into that type of discussion?
Exactly.
Natural reaction is, I don't want to. I don't want to go deep because I don't want to have a conflict. I don't have an argument. And that is it. And then natural, and it grows. And then, of course, there's your miscommunication, there's your problem, there's other situations that occur, and etc. And this natural angst. So it's it's as simple, I guess, in some cases.
Yeah, and it's the fear. It's the fear of what other person will think. But if you're not gonna ask the question, you will never know.
That is the point. Asking questions, I guess that this is something that we have to teach ourselves to do, because I was always convinced, and I always tell myself that, and I always tell my the people I work with, my students, is that the most essential thing is not that you learn theory and that you can say, let's say, apply that theory in practice. The essential thing is that you can question that theory with good questions, or even bad questions, and initiate some sort of a discussion, and then maybe initiate some sort of a change, or develop or improvement into that, theoretical practice that you can then put in practice. So it's all about the questions, because there's this, now we're in this kind of situation where just leave me alone, stop talking. So therefore I don't have any questions, just leave me alone. I'm good. I get it. Enough. So that's it. It's our natural, being now. And but asking a question, good or bad, who cares? Initiates that.
Yeah, instead of taking as like common sense and just like playing along and having your own point of view, and another person has his own point of view, you using the same words which you kind of understand the meaning, using as a common sense, like for each of you, but suddenly in some part of the communication, the distraction appear, the miscommunication appear, and then you start like how that person didn't understand, like it was so clear, uh, it's like tangible thing. It's like if it's the tree, it's the tree. Why he needs to think about like birds or something else. It's just like, but instead of actually judging that what another person is thinking, or like taking as a common sense, and and just playing along, or just like judging that other people, they know what they do because you know what you do. Um, it's like, walking like blindless, I think sometimes, it's you 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 have to test it. You have to all the time, especially when you're playing in such environment as business. You have to test it. You cannot just like, rely on yourself, on what common sense for you, and just like think that everybody else will think the same way. No, you first need to understand if another person, have the same kind of perspective as you do, and it's where that feeling also comes, I think. I mean, our society, and especially in business, became very masculinity, very like, the um, man's driven, kind of logical, and counting everything, but they forgetting that the actual value of the femininity perspective, and that feeling, and that feeling, it goes into the communication, especially as women has that sense of, is it right or wrong, like, sometimes you can feel it. It's like something dodgy about this conversation. It's like, you cannot explain, but it's just that feeling is like something wrong, something wrong. So it's especially during these kind of senses, you have to test it, like, does that person has the same perspective as I do, and does he understand my perspective, instead of like, being very organized and very structural, and just like, bam 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 bam, this is the meeting, this is like, the agenda, this is this, it's
Yeah, I mean, I think that common kind of misinterpretation in all this, is that returning kind of to this issue, with masculinity and femininity, and this communication in business, regarding, genders. I think that it all kind of, there's this terrible stereotype, which I honestly do not understand, and I really, really kind of am upset when I hear that, but I still hear it quite often when people say that, well, women are just too emotional, so sometimes their
Mhm.
decisions, or sometimes their kind of, solutions or whatever, they are just based on emotion, that, that quick emotion, and that's it. But there's a huge distinction, and there's a huge difference between an emotion and a discussion. And the fact
Yeah,
I have an opinion, or I'd like to discuss that opinion, and give me 10 minutes for that, which we all do have. It doesn't mean that I'm emotional. It means that I want to get to that.
understanding
Yeah,
the,
I need to understand it. And it's not only me, you also need to understand it. Like both of us, if let's say
yeah.
we're talking, so it's all about giving each other a bit of time, and getting to know that ground that we're both in. But it's not an emotion, so it's all this misconception that if I want to have a discussion, I'm emotional, or that comes from emotion. No, we're quite, I don't know, smart human beings, and not everything is based on that. And yeah, intuition. I think that, again, not saying, who's better, women or men. It's not that, but it's just, I've noticed it on myself, and I don't know how many decisions I've made based on my intuition, and they were quite successful, just because at the time I listened to my inner voice, and reasoned with myself, So
And here we can give even the comparison between, like, the creator and the system, or in sociology there is a theory on the agent and structure, so it's basically the structure is everything organized and, like, logical, everything counted, all the risks, and the flaws, and how is has to be ruled by somebody. And agent is that free will, is that like, who's, I want to do this and I'm going to do that, or I'm feeling to do this and I'm doing that. But the combination
yeah.
of two of them can bring magical things. And if we're gonna just, it's the same, like, if you rely only on your intelligence, and have no heart in it, you might do horrible things, but if you have only heart and no intelligence, you might do stupid things. So between each of those two components has to be a mutual, a synergy of like keep balancing between two of them, because each of them is valuable in the face of another. So it's like it's the same. Why we're pushing so much of the women's in a particular site, or I don't know, particular, like creating a community, brand community, or like expanding the company itself, but when it goes to the sales, or finding the, I don't know, the where the business needs to be developed, like this is that guy's kind of responsibility. I think the both ways can work. Yes, we have different point of view to the things, but I think that discussion between these two different point of views might benefit each of them. That's
Always. I think that I was participating in those in some trainings recently, and one of the best, I guess, messages that I took from it is that we don't spend enough time on reflection in anywhere, in business, in talks and relationship, anywhere basically. Although I dislike this word, again, returning to the issue of being a linguist, I don't like this word reflection, because it feels like we have this, like now I have to sit down and think about my feelings, or like now we have to discuss our feelings. No. But this whole idea of reflecting and thinking about, where we are at this moment, as a team, as a structure, as an organization, as a client, business person, whatever, just having a bit of a reflection on what is happening, on how's, everything going on, and sharing, exchanging, those the ideas basically, or
we understand each other
yeah,
basically.
that's that. But let's have some time and spend some time on it, because that's crucial. That's crucial, because we will never have enough time, but we have to allocate this time for this reflection. And even if that's once a month, or once, as they were said, that even after teamwork, we have those team building activities, sometimes, like, okay, building everything is okay, we work as a team, great, that's it, go, everyone goes home. So how did we work as a team? Did those exercises, or did those discussions that we had, did they actually help us grow? What's the outcome? So where's that reflection? So we sometimes do things because of different lack of something. We do things superficially, just because we do that. We have this check, we had a team building activity at work. All right, we're done. But why? Well, what's the point of it? Did you reach that goal that you wanted to reach? So it's all, it's, you understand, we as humans, we understand those things, but at the same time, we make our lives easier. We think that we make our lives easier, we avoid them, which eventually grows into something bigger, and creates massive problems, I guess.
Yes, it's natural just to see from other cultures, or other people from your own culture point of view, and you think that this is when how you brought up, it could be you start looking for similarities, but you end up actually just having a very small bits of information of that person, instead of actually asking difficult questions and understanding what's what diversity, what's that, how to say it, like having a diversity of perspectives, like just somebody else thinking in a completely different way than you do, to try to understand why they're thinking in that way, by not judging, by not having like, this is the wrong or right perspective, by actually really understanding from what kind of corner they are looking, so that they are actually ending up with this kind of outcome. So that's the magic, that's the interesting part, and myself as anthropologist is like, our main kind of methodology of how we explore our cultures is by, participant observation, is by being and by watching, by seeing through the eyes of the community, through the eyes of the people, from the eyes of our culture. So this means you have to forget yourself.
Yeah.
You have to forget yourself for a time being in order actually to step in our people's shoes and to understand their point of view.
Yeah. And I think that, that's again kind of answering this whole why, the aim of our podcast, that
Yeah.
stepping into somebody else's shoes, trying to hear this variety of perspectives, and kind of building then your own mindset, and building and developing your own values, and then sharing and exchanging. And I think we have been needing that. I know that that's not how we say that, but we have been
Mm.
needing that for a very long time, where you are not afraid to express, explore, and find something new, and answer questions, answer your own questions. Because whether you're a business person, whether you're just whether you're anyone, doesn't matter, but we do have certain questions that need to be answered, and it's impossible to do that in your own bubble, I guess.
Yeah, it's like, stop identifying yourself by a particular logos, labels, identities, I don't know, any kind of concepts you're putting yourself on, and actually understanding your true meaning you have, because you also have, the particular point of view to all of this, so. And if we're gonna be afraid and keep that point of view just only for ourselves, we never, we're gonna, that's how actually innovation's happening,
Mm-hmm.
by actually sharing something crazy, something, making mistakes, by expressing yourself, and I think this is the goal for all of us. And I think the business also needs to evolve in the same kind of way, and especially when we're spending so much time at work, and like, we're concentrating on the money earning, and I think it's a huge part of us being shaped by the business world, when actually we end up by not even having the meaning of ourselves, and I'm not talking about those people who actually found themselves and, like, doing the business for their, pleasure, or they finding, that business game amazing. But I'm talking about, like, there are plenty of people who actually um, just following the rules, just following, like, trying to learn the rules of the game, but never actually have their own questions.
Yeah, that's very important, and important for because, at the end of the day, it's not about somebody else. It's all about, you
Yeah.
defining, as you said, yourself, and finding your own true self. And I know it sounds so corny when you think about, oh, finding yourself, it's like those motivational speeches, but that is the point. As long as, as long as you're happy within yourself, and the word happy includes a lot of, different kinds of words in itself, but as long as you're happy with yourself, with your own identity, and you feel that, okay, I really know, I'm confident, then that's, then all ways are open. But if you're still, quite hesitant, and looking and searching, and that's quite okay. So,
Mm.
everyone needs their own time to find that path, I guess, and answer the
Yeah,
questions.
have your own meaning, you know, of
Yeah.
the concepts, and try to, you know, question question what's around. I mean, we can talk probably and talk about this topic,
Yeah.
but I think that's the main idea, at least what why I offered you to let's have a chat, is basically just to um, because I'm sensing that some of the listeners do not understand what this podcast is actually all about, you know. But it's that's why I wanted to just to discuss and just to show what kind of conversations, you know, we have in mind,
Mhm.
and what's the actually the perspective we are looking when we're talking with the people, with, you know, who are inviting them in the podcast. And I think it's from now on and more, it's I will keep inviting different kind of people, you know, from the, you know, maybe odd or different kind of specializations, where they actually can show their life in their kind of work culture, like, you know, how they form those rules of the games, like how they found it, like, you know, the communicating perspectives, like, and at the same time they show theirs, you know. So it's I hope that it's, you know, more and more of the podcast um, will be interesting to listen, you know, for the people who are actually in the business world, and they are lacking of this kind of uh, decent, real conversation with the person, real people, like, you know.
Definitely. And I can just, yeah, simply say that that's, sometimes this, pause and having giving yourself a chance and listening, to what's happening around and what how other people deal with maybe similar problems or similar issues. It's refreshing. I guess that's how we learn, how we develop, and how this is how we find. Basically, this is how we have to move forward. Then
And this is how we're getting a reflection, you know. This
yeah,
is the
your
you
reflection. Yeah,
you
yeah,
you also, at the same time as we talked in the beginning, you getting the answers which you have the questions in your mind, you know, by listening these kind of perspectives, because people sharing their perspective, their point of view, you know. At the same time, you're getting the answers as well. So I think it's really important, even though you're just listening, you know, and you're not asking. But I mean, the listeners have the opportunity to ask those questions. We arrange those, you know, the Q&A sessions where they have the
the opportunity.
opportunity to ask these questions. So it's like, you know, that's why it's the whole, at least from my as a producer's point of view, is that's why we built this podcast from, like, you know, the article where you're actually reading and you're getting the information with your eyes, and you're forming your kind of perspective, your kind of meaning in your head, because you're reading the text, you know, and the brain is kind of forming the images for you inside of the head, you know. And then when you got the picture, you hearing the person before, you actually already have a connection, you know, because you already read about that person, you know, the article. And then some, you know, questions might be answered, some not. But that's why there is a, you know, the last part is like, you know, if I got any kind of questions, this is my opportunity to actually ask those questions. Is either going to be from the article or from the, you know, podcast. But that's how, let's engage, you know, let's engage and have those conversations all together, even though we're just talking with the speaker. But you have so many opportunities to actually engage and you know, expand that conversation, expand this discussion, you know. And that's I think it could be benefits, could benefit, you know, to all of us, you know, for us as you as a host, and for me as a producer, and you know, as a speaker, to have a different viewpoints and the listener who actually are questioning these questions. Those,
And like the whole package,
yeah, I mean, let's do not allow us to speak too much. Get involved, get involved. Let's have a dynamic and interesting conversation. Damn, I missed all these kind of. It's
Yeah,
like
that's the point,
when you're just eating the words of another person is amazing. That's why I love the discussions. It's like you there, but you somewhere else with that person's perspective. Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
amazing feeling.
takes kind of your mind out of it's I think it's essential. I agree, and I think that's well. I hope that this kind of answered some of the questions that our listeners might have had, and going to give a bit of better understanding. And of course, it's always good when you know who are the people behind everything, and you become more comfortable, I guess. So that's the point.
Exactly. Yeah, Brigita. I mean, it's great to speak with you.
Yes, pleasure.
Very fun.
Pleasure.
Amazing. I wish more and more interesting conversations with you for those new speakers who are gonna be.
Yeah, that's something that we all, I guess, anticipate for, is that and end the conversation. So let us hope. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So I think we can finish by here, no?
Yeah, wrapping it up.
we had said quite a lot as well, so it's,
well, thank you for inviting me then today.
I mean, thank you for signing up for this kind of experiment. Let's see how the listeners will take it.
All right, good.
Yeah, so have a great day.
Thank you too.
Biz Culture. This is the podcast about the meaning of concepts in business.